Hi, it's Chris from PhixFlow. We put together a few videos to show you around the new GUI. Now, these videos are meant for experienced users of PhixFlow. If you're just getting started, or if you'd like to know about any of the new features that have gone in over the last few versions, which are all about building really nice looking applications for end users, then please head to our standard documentation. So this is just for people who've been using the application for a while, especially those who are used to modeling. We've got 3 videos. The first one's going to cover generally getting around in the new GUI and how to do modeling, which you'll see is much the same as before. The second one will be about using applications. When I say that, I don't mean building applications with lots of nice looking forms. We hope you'll all do that in the long run, but for now it's just using the concept of applications to help organize your configuration. And the third video will cover views. There's a much nicer way of building views in the new GUI, so I want to show you that. Okay, so let's get started. Now, one thing that has been in the application for a while, for a few versions, but you may not really have noticed in the old GUI, is an app mode and a design mode. And I'm telling you about this now for the experienced users amongst you, just in case you find yourself staring at a blank screen and you wonder where everything has gone. And it probably means you're in app mode. So if you go down to this little icon in the right hand corner and switch back to design mode. Okay, let's get started with some very simple models. I'm going to create a model, I call it demo, and I'm going to load in a file, let's call that demo. And you'll see this is all very familiar, I hope. And that is basically all the same steps as you used to take. Let's load in some data, check that's okay. So that modelling experience is very similar to how it was in the old GUI, and you'll find that everything is like that. The differences are obviously these new icons that you'll see at the top and the layout of these configuration forms, which are all tabbed here over on the right hand side. We'll talk about the tabs in a minute, but the actual contents of the configuration is basically unchanged. So I'm just going to show you something you couldn't do in the old GUI that you can in the new GUI, and this is a very useful feature. I'm going to go down to the list of streams. I'm going to find a stream that I was working on earlier. Now you can do this from any configuration form, no matter what the object, whether it's a collector or an exporter. You can grab this icon in the top left hand corner of the configuration form and drop it onto your model like that. So let's just save that change. Okay, let's have a look at the list of tabs on the right hand side. Every time I double click on an object, the configuration details open in a tab. Now if I want to look at several things at once, the best thing is just to drag this tab over here, open it up, and open up another object. If I want to move this back into the main list, I simply drag it back. Now the other thing you'll see in the application is hamburger menus. These menus generally appear when there are too many buttons to squeeze into the space available. If I shrink this model view, you'll see that the remaining buttons are squashed into the hamburger menu there. Let's just talk about the main hamburger down here. This contains several key items, which we'll talk about later. The import and export configuration and the export pane. Now quickly we'll talk about a special button here. It looks a bit like a hamburger menu, but this is the repository browser. So the main thing that's going to be open in this list of tabs is the repository browser. If you close that down, you can simply go and open it from there. Now you can have as many repository browsers open as you like. And sometimes it's useful to work with several if you want to start moving objects around, especially as you start putting applications together. Now what we've done is open so many tabs that they can't all squeeze into the space. So again, there's another hamburger menu, and if you click on that, the remaining tabs that are not shown are displayed. Now we're going to look at quick links. These are really useful links that lead you from one object into the object that backs it. So let's open a view on some data I loaded earlier. So if I go into the stream configuration, the stream view configuration, and open one of these view attributes. You can see here there's some attributes about the stream, there's some details about the stream attribute that backs the view attribute. If I click on that, that leads me directly to the stream attribute. And anytime you see a link that's underlined like that, that will link you back to the backing object. So let's try something else. Let's add a view on here. So let's look for everything where the publisher is Theodora. Save myself some typing. Okay, so what I want to do now is make that the default filter on this view. So let's go back into the stream configuration. Select that filter and save that. And we're not really interested in the application of the filter. The important thing is if I've opened this view configuration, if I click on that, that takes me straight through to the filter details. Let's have a look at a few things we can do in grid views. If we right click on the data, we can go straight to the stream view configuration, as we saw a second ago, or in fact to the stream configuration. If you right click in a column heading, you'll see a number of options. We can freeze and unfreeze a column. Let's have a look at that first. It's a bit like freezing a column in Excel. So you'll see here, if I scroll along, I've now frozen the columns on the left hand side. So let's unfreeze that column. It goes back to normal. I can make a column flex. Now by default all columns are flex, which means that as I expand the view, the columns expand according to the size of the overall window. And let's set this publishing column to be very narrow. As I expand that, you'll see it stays the same size. So let's set that back to flex. It's now so narrow, it's a bit difficult to select, but there we go. And that will now adapt to the size of the window again. I can sort ascending or descending. And the other really useful thing in the new GUI in grids is that I can apply quick filters. So I'm going to search for Theodora Pressbooks like I did before, but all I have to do is that. Beg your pardon, got my capital T. And you can build these filters up, so I'm going to search in another column as well. So I'm going to search for subjects containing C. And so you can have as many of these quick filters applied across the column headings as you like. And as you can see, you can build them up within an individual column at the same time. Finally, in grid views, let's talk about moving the columns around. All you need to do is grab the column heading and drag it to where you want it. Now, almost anything you can do in a grid view of data, you can do in a grid view of configuration data. Over here, let's look for any attributes that contain the word book. Okay, so there's only one. There's only 5 attributes there, so that wasn't that difficult. But if you have a large number of attributes, or in fact a list of any configuration objects, that becomes really useful. The last thing we're going to talk about in this first video is writing configuration expressions. There are a couple of new features which will make this a bit easier. Now, if you've ever worked with one of us, you'll know that we are really keen on indenting the configuration expressions. It makes them much easier to read. Now, let's say I've written this little expression here and I've forgotten to indent it. I'll just select those 2 lines in the middle and press Tab, and that indents both. Let's say I go a bit too far. All I need to do is Shift Tab to bring them back. And those are very common features you'll find in any development application. And the other thing is, if I accidentally change something, I can now Control Z as an undo inside that text editor. Okay, that's it for the first video, and we'll see you again in the next one. Thank you.